This camera has been paying my bills for the last 3 years and it's one of the best investments I ever made. In this video I'll be sharing my experience with the Fujifilm XT4 after years of use and why I think it's a solid camera to get, especially if you come from a film photography background. I started my photography journey with my Olympus M10, but at the beginning I couldn't afford to learn exclusively on film, so I got my first digital camera, which was a Sony a6000, I think. It was okay, I didn't really use it much, and then I sold that and then I got the Fujifilm XT4, which I really loved. When I decided to give this a go, try to become a professional photographer, I knew I needed something slightly better, so I got myself the Fujifilm XT4. I obviously wanted a professional camera, but I also wanted a camera that was pretty. And I think we can all agree that Fujifilm makes some very good looking cameras. And it's clear that I'm not the only one feeling that way, as we've seen other camera brands making cameras that kind of look like film cameras. The manual dials for shutter speed, ISO and exposure compensation are what drew me to this camera in the first place. They really mimic the feel of a film camera. The dials feel a bit too much, especially the ISO one. I don't really use it. If you're on the go, you're doing maybe street photography or you're doing travel photography, you need to get a shot quite quickly that you saw, it just feels a bit annoying and clunky. But that's not a big deal, because the good thing about this camera is that it's fully customizable, so you can move any settings to either the front or the back wheel of the camera. Personally, the Fujifilm X-T4 feels great in hand. It's definitely heavier than my SLRs and it's the largest of the XTs, but it's weather sealed and it's built to last like a professional film camera. If you're used to shooting with something heavy like the RB67 or the Pentax 67, I don't think the weight will bother you at all. This is the condition of the camera after 3 years of use. It's been used a lot, almost on the daily, and I think it's held up quite well. One thing worth mentioning is the screen. It doesn't tilt like the other XTs. Personally, I don't really mind because I shoot video, so I don't mind not having a tilting screen, but I know it could bother some people, especially if you're used to shoot waist level. I love the image quality. If I didn't, I would have used this camera for this long. And now I don't want to say something potentially controversial, but compared to other camera brands I've used, I won't name names, editing raw files from this is just a different experience. Especially when it comes to colors, nothing else really compares. And I think this comes from my film photography background. I'm used to get my scans back and have a very good starting point. Fujifilm colors have the natural rich tone that film also have, making it an excellent base for editing or even final images if you're shooting JPEG. Resolution is a hot topic at the moment, but the 26 megapixels that this camera have personally work for me. Would I love a GFX at one point? Yes, obviously, but I've been getting on fine without 50/100 megapixels so far. And if photography wasn't my job, I don't think I would ever spend that amount of money on a camera, and I'll probably use that money to go on a holiday somewhere sunnier than the north of England. This camera's resolution is enough for me to be able to crop images without losing any major image quality. I'm generally happy with how this camera handles shadows and highlights. You know, dynamic range is one of the things that I love the most when it comes to film photography, especially medium format photography. But I can really complain about dynamic range in this camera because highlights and shadows are quite easy to fix in post-production anyway. My most used lens is the Zoom 16-55mm f2.8, which is the equivalent to 24mm to 82mm in full frame. I love the versatility, I love having the option. I usually shoot at a moderate aperture. I'm not the biggest fan of narrow apertures, of bokeh. I think we should leave bokeh in the 2010s. It's no secret, Fujifilm makes some expensive lenses, but at the moment I think we're quite lucky with having a lot of options from third parties. And the thing that I actually love to do is adapting my film lenses to my camera. You can pretty much adapt any lens you want, you just have to buy the right adapter and then change the settings in your camera. There's a whole thing online about Fujifilm's autofocus not being good, and you probably haven't seen it because you're not as chronically online as I am. What I can say is I think it's definitely better in photography than is in video. What I've noticed is that it definitely struggles in low light, but if you come from a film photography background as I do, you're probably quite used to manual focus. So for me, it's not really being an issue. And if I'm in a low light situation and the autofocus is a bit slow, I just manual focus all the way. The best thing about this camera is probably the LCD and the color profiles. It's great for showing someone else's photos from the back of your camera, and just for yourself if you need a preview of what the photos look like. Fujifilm film simulations are what Fuji is mainly known for. They replicate classic Fujifilm film stocks like Provia, Velvia and Acros, giving you the film-like look straight out the camera. It's great if you love film, but you want to take a break from scanning and developing. I think this camera is great for photographers that want to transition from film photography to digital photography, and even just for photographers that want to have an extra digital camera on hand. I specifically chose the XT for its video features because I knew that I was gonna make videos eventually. And before anyone leaves a comment saying that this or that camera is better, I get it. There are so many incredible cameras out there, but this is just my experience transitioning from a film photography background to digital. And if you have any cameras that you would recommend that you tested yourself, please feel free to share your experience in the comments. All things considered, I think this camera is great for its price, especially on the second-hand market. And if you've seen some of my videos, you will know by now that I'm not big on spending money on things. I rather spend money on experiences, travel, tools that enrich me professionally and personally. And for me, this camera has been a worthwhile investment, but I'm aware of the fact that it might not be for you. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you got this far, please like and subscribe because it really helps my channel. And I launched a newsletter, so if you want to receive more frequent updates on what I'm up to, what I'm watching, what camera I'm using and what random thoughts that I have about stuff, you can find a link down below.